A beautiful name for a young girl is the name Miriam. Who was Miriam? Miriam was the older sister of Moshe. She was a prophetess, and she brought about the birth of Moses. After Pharaoh decreed to throw all the male children into the water, Moshe's father Amram, who was the leader at that time of the Jewish people in Egypt, in the time of slavery, but he was the leader of the Jews, separated from his wife Yocheved. And because of this, the entire nation followed, and they too separated from their wives. The concern was that if they give birth to a boy, a baby boy, Pharaoh will throw that boy into the Nile. And therefore, to spare the agony and suffering and murder of these Jewish children, they decided to stop procreating. Miriam received a prophecy from God that her parents, Amram, Yocheved, together will give birth to the Goyel, to the Redeemer of Israel. She went back to her parents, primarily her father, and said, "You, Dad, you are worse than Pharaoh." Why? Because Pharaoh decreed only on the males, on the boys, but you have decreed on the boys and the girls. Because of you, there are no children being born to the Jewish people. Amram was not excited with his daughter's words. And then Miriam continued, "And by the way, Dad, you are going to give birth to the Redeemer of Israel." And so Amram returns to Yocheved. Yocheved gives birth to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moses is born. The Egyptians came to the house to look for the baby boy. The parents told Miriam, "You brought this boy upon us, now you take care of him." Miriam put the baby into the Nile. She watched from the distance, and as the baby in the cradle went down the Nile, she saw how the daughter of Pharaoh picked up Moshe Rabbeinu. The daughter of Pharaoh, her name was Bitya. She went to the Nile to convert, it says in the Talmud, to Judaism. She gave up her father's gods and idols, and she saw this holy child, and she asked her father, "Can we keep the child? I want this little baby." And Pharaoh, a great leader, melted to his daughter, and he said, "Of course, you want this child, not a problem." And because of this, Moshe Rabbeinu was raised in the house of Pharaoh. However, at the very beginning, after Moshe was taken out, so Bitya, the daughter of Pharaoh, gave Moshe over to the wet nurses, but Moshe refused to nurse. And she saw Miriam in the distance, this young Jewish girl. She called her over and said, "Little girl, take this boy, bring him back to the Hebrews and get someone to nurse him." And so Miriam took Moshe back to Yocheved, the mother. And for the next 2 years, Yocheved raised Moshe in her own house, getting paid by Bitya, the daughter of Pharaoh, like food stamps. You get paid for giving food to your own children. We are told that in the merit of Miriam, the water was provided for the Jewish people 40 years in the desert. It was called the Be'er of Miriam, the well of Miriam. We are told that every Saturday night, if you go to a well and you drink from the waters of those wells, you will be healed, because the well of Miriam goes and spreads forth into all wells on Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos Kodesh. What is the meaning of Miriam? Miriam has a few meanings. Number one, Miriam means mar midli, representing drops of rain, but many drops of rain. Mar means drops of rain, mar midli, and that's the first part of her name, Mar. And the second part of her name is Yam. implying that the drops are so much that it creates an ocean of water, alluding to infinite blessing. Rain is blessing, and an ocean of water is an ocean of blessing. So Miriam represents blessing in every area and every aspect of life. Furthermore, the Medrash tells us that Goyal, the Redeemer, this is Miriam. Why? Because Al Shem HaMirur Shebeschusa Nigaldu Magazeda de Vayimararu. In her days, it says that Pharaoh brought bitterness upon the Jewish people with rigorous work, and in her merit, this bitterness was transformed into redemption. Furthermore, David HaMelech comes from Miriam. So therefore, she alludes to the redemption. The gematria of Miriam is 290, which are the same as the letters Rotz and Tsar. Tsar means pain. Miriam was given the name Miriam because when she was born was considered to be the worst time of the exile and the bondage of the Jewish people. It was the most bitter time. However, because of her, it was transformed from bitterness into sweetness. That's the power of Miriam. Not only is Miriam a name that represents an abundance of blessing, but furthermore, it has the ability to transform bitterness into sweetness. And similarly, the gematria of Miriam, which is 290, represents the transformation of Tsar, Tzadik Reish, which means suffering and constraints, like Meitzar, and through transformation of Reish Tzadik, which is Ratz, to run into the water, to run into the waters of Torah and into prayer, into the synagogue. The person changes and transforms bitterness into sweetness. What is the pasuk of Miriam? The pasuk of Miriam is Me'ere Nayim Yisamach Leiv Shmua Tova Tidashen Otzem, which is the same pasuk that we recite for Menachem, because Miriam starts with the letter Mem and also ends with the letter Mem. And that is the light of the eyes that rejoices in the heart, and a good news fattens the bone. Here too, alluding to redemption, the good news of Geula. It was because of Miriam that they heard the good news that the Redeemer of Israel would be born, and he brought about the Torah, which the Torah is the light of our eyes. And this brings gladness of hearts.